of Cleveland, Cleveland Heights, University Heights, Shaker Heights, Garfield Heights, and Newburgh Heights, approximately 365,000 people. Today, I have the pleasure of having with me CEO Eric Gordon, the CEO of the Cleveland Public School System, a school system that I graduated from. And I'm happy to take today to be wearing a throwback to John Hay High School, the Mighty Mighty Hornets. I'm wearing my green and gold. So hopefully all those John Hay folks out there and Cleveland students, Cleveland graduates will actually pay attention, because we have some very important information to give. Before we get started, I want to remind people that you have 3.5 hours, only 3.5 hours to get your ballot down to the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections on 30th and Euclid. This is a very important election because there are ballot initiatives on that ballot, and we really need your vote to count. So with that being said, CEO Gordon, thank you so much for joining me today. As always, I think you're doing a great job with the students that we have at the Cleveland Public School System. And since we passed House Bill 525, the Cleveland Plan, we have saw much progress when it comes to what the students are doing and how they are improving academically, even under stressful times. So thank you again for all you do for us.
Well, thanks for having me here, and thank you for your constant support, and go Hornets.
That's right, Mighty Mighty Hornets. So listen, CEO, today it came out in the news that you wrote a letter to the federal government asking for $200 billion, you and several other large school districts. Can you please explain to us why you wrote that letter and what you will use that money for?
Sure. So I am the chair of an organization called the Council of the Great City Schools. We represent 76 big city school districts across America. And collectively, 62 of us signed on to a letter today that we sent to Congress requesting the $200 billion in stimulus funding. We did that because we know that it is more and more likely that we're going to continue to be addressing COVID-19 in the weeks and months to come. Don't know exactly what it looks like, but it's clear that it's not just going to go away by August and everything's back to normal. And that includes providing for learning needs, which I think we're going to talk about today, but the mailing and printing of materials, getting devices in students' hands, those sorts of things, but also the basic needs of our families, continuing to feed meals every day, making sure we get families connected to high-speed, reliable internet, which is not yet a utility in our community, even though it should be. And doing all of that in the face of potential significant loss of both state and local revenue from declining tax bases, estimated anywhere from 15 to 25%. And the only organization in our country that can fix that is the federal government. Congress is the only organization that can run a deficit in order to support their states and their cities. I just want to be really clear, though, that while the letter came from the large urban districts, it's for every school district in the country, whether you're rural, suburban, or urban. So every district in your Senate district, any public school district in Ohio, we simply are the advocates that took the first step.
Great. Well, I'm glad you did that, and hopefully Congress will actually listen. It appears that they are trying to work together now since we're in this crisis, but I hope, because things are starting to open up again, that they won't slack off and basically, as one of the senators said, file for bankruptcy, district or state, if you can't find the money. One of the things I do know is that the New York governor and Ohio's governor has said that we are losing general revenue dollars because of such high numbers of unemployment. They have asked every state agency to cut dollars from their budget. And from my understanding, the prison systems, the educational system is going to be asked to cut your budget. Now, this is the last place we need to be cutting dollars. This is the foundation for people and their lives. So what are you going to do if we cut the budget from the state level and if you don't get the money from the federal level? And what's your drop dead date to actually get those dollars?
Well, so that's exactly why we put the letter out there today, is to say to the federal government, we went through the ARRA recession, and we know what it cost public school districts. I was here in Cleveland during that time, and this is going to be far worse than what we experienced then. but we can get in front of it with what we learned at that time. That's how we came to the figure of $200 billion. For Cleveland alone, we have a levy that is prepared to renew in November that is $65 million for us annually. If the governor has to pull back the wellness dollars that he gave us, that's $12 million for us annually. I know he doesn't want to, but he, like us, has to balance his budget. If we see property taxes decrease by just 1% from delinquencies, that's $2.5 million for every 1%. Those three numbers alone, if they happened all at the same time, is $88 million out of the Cleveland School District budget, which is over 16% of our operations. So it's really imperative that the one agency that can solve this problem and backstop not only Cleveland schools, but school districts in Ohio, municipalities in Ohio, and the state itself, that's the federal government. I believe that they want to. What this letter today was about was helping them know, so what is that need from your experts on the ground in your school districts across the nation?
Thank you. We know that 40% of the households of students who attend the Cleveland Municipal School District do not have access to internet service. And a significant number of them who have access don't even have a computer. And many of the computers that they do have may be old and outdated, and they may not be able to get on or stay on to the internet. And of course, several companies in our region have stepped up. We've had Spectrum, the local cable and telephone company that has stepped up since we started this stay-at-home order and offered free internet service to every child in the school districts across their territory to log on for free. All they need to do is call a telephone number. So Spectrum has opened it up to children. They've opened it up for K through 12, They've opened it up to college students. And most recently, they've opened it up to teachers. So teachers are now able to access free Wi-Fi. So I want to take this time to give that telephone number, because the more and more I talk to parents in the community, one of the biggest complaints I get is, I don't have access to the internet, therefore my child doesn't do their work, and our minutes on our cell phone just don't last that long. So the number, if you want to have access, is 1-844-488-8395. Again, 1-844-488-8395. And my assistant Kayla will be posting that number and information on our website very soon. So tell me how you're the experts, and let me just also thank them. Let me take this time to thank the educators and all of the support staff, the Cleveland Teacher Union, all the other unions who are working so hard to make sure our children have everything that they need. Can you tell me how you guys are addressing education, given the fact that so many people just can't log on and get the resources they need?
Yeah, so first we started with a low-tech solution of printing content for every grade level, which for the first couple of weeks we distributed at our food sites and people could download, but we're now actually mailing directly to every family's homes. It shows up every week by Wednesday. And think about highlight magazines when we were a kid. You get your content that your teachers know you have so that you can be interacting with that. Second, we asked teachers then to do virtual parent, student, teacher conferences with each family to say, what is the right amount of contact for each of your students? Because we were hearing all the way from no one's talking to my child to my child and I are overwhelmed by how much contact we were getting. So really individualizing for each child and family what they're able to accommodate. Third, for those who have access, continue to use the tools they were already using in their classroom that they're familiar with: Classroom Dojo, Jupyter, Study Island, Clever, which is a tool that lets us put lots of resources into a single digital platform. And then we've also layered on school hotlines where you can, just like when we were in school, call the homework hotline, where you can talk to an adult on the phone if the phone is the only tool that you have. And we patch it actually from the school phone straight to our teachers. But we've also been really aggressively tackling this digital divide. So Spectrum has provided that free resource, and to the capacity they can expand, they're working hard to do it. But we've also distributed nearly 12,000 devices, Chromebooks and iPads and others. We have ordered another 4,700, of which 2,000 will be arriving this week. We just signed a deal with Sprint to buy another about 4,000 hotspots to get into homes to bridge this digital divide. But you lifted it up in the front of the question. We have to, as a community and as a country, address this once and for all. We have to treat the internet, high-speed, reliable internet, not just your data on your phone, as a public utility available to all, like electricity, like water, like gas, not a luxury afforded to some. Because the response we're using right now is get hotspots out, which is a great short term, but who's going to be the one to go back to that home and say, oh, the crisis is over, we're unplugging you and taking you back out of the grid? That can't be us as a community. So we have to, as part of the stimulus funds and the things we're researching, we have to find long-term solutions to make sure that we once and for all plug our families in. I'll give you an issue not even connected to schools. Yesterday, I had a doctor's appointment with my doctor, and we did it through telehealth. The only reason I could do that is because I have high-speed, reliable internet in my home. So my kids and families who don't have that are not only being excluded from educational opportunities, but healthcare, legal services, and everything else that we said we would do in a virtual environment, in the stay-home environment. You can tell I care a lot about this, and I really want us as a community, as a state and a nation to solve it. Digital C here in Cleveland is really working to do that, to be a low-cost, nonprofit provider that will be able to help us build a bridge to make sure this is not a short-term solution, but a permanent solution for Cleveland.
You're definitely right about that. Digital C actually submitted a capital budget request to provide internet access to every home in the Ward 7 community. So that is something that myself and Representative Stephanie House championed, although I don't know if we're going to get to a capital budget given the state of our finances that we're in right now. I also want to mention that AT&T also has several hotspots available to people. You have to get to the hotspot, but they have made themselves available as well. So that's one. Now, these are the next two questions are probably the two most important questions that I get every day. Number one, we used to put so many requirements on high school students to graduate. We make you take more tests than the federal government even mandates for us to test, because we want to make sure that students compete or can compete with people all over the world. Now, based on a whole lot of information, the report cards that we know are flawed, the state test that we know doesn't necessarily give you a great indication on whether or not you're going to be successful, we're no longer going to require you to do that. Because of COVID-19, those students who are in high school right now do not have to comply with the state testing rule, and they don't have to comply with a lot of other requirements that we have. I'm happy about it because I know that has held so many of our students back. So can you please tell me, what are you going to base the criteria for students graduating or passing to the next grade? One of my districts said we should average the first 3 semesters out, leave the 4th quarter out. Some said average all 4th quarters out. I'd like to know, and I think all parents want to know, what are you going to be looking at when it comes to whether or not my child moves to the next grade and graduates?
Sure. So in Cleveland, we actually grade by semester. So the 1st and 2nd quarter grades are already kind of in the books. So we really only have 3rd and 4th quarter to make a decision about. What we decided to do was to look at any student who was passing in the 3rd quarter, and 3rd quarter had just ended, and then match that with, did that student make every practical, reasonable effort to stay engaged in learning with his or her teacher? And we were very careful about those words because, again, as I described earlier, for some students, that really may be only doing the learning packets because that's the only thing they have. Other students, it could be much more digital content. And so we've left it a lot to teacher judgment. But criteria 1 is if you were passing in the 3rd quarter and you stay engaged in the 4th quarter, you will pass for the 2nd semester. If you did not stay engaged, we're going to give you an incomplete. We're not going to fail you. We're going to say, okay, you're not done, because we still want kids to have motivation to catch up when and how we can re-engage them. Mm-hmm. If you were not on track in 3rd quarter, and I've had some seniors, students say, oh man, I really messed up 3rd quarter. What we said is, okay, so you can create a student learning plan with your teacher to make up your 3rd quarter and stay engaged for 4th quarter, and you can still pass. And then for students who are in what's called credit recovery, they can complete those credit recovery courses as well. So we've tried to really take advantage of the opportunity that the legislature created to say, if students were completing their curriculum on time and they stay engaged in the learning opportunities as the legislature intended, they should promote or they should graduate. The other thing I would remind the community is because we do have all of this state testing, most of the written curriculum had been taught by the third quarter because we started testing essentially in late March, early April. So while we lost a quarter of instructional time, that's not instructional time for new content. That was instructional time to start moving forward after the content that should have been learned for the year, which gives us more confidence to rely on that third quarter grade and engagement. So far, we're seeing really good results that our kids and families understand it. It's clear, it's simple. Everybody can be successful if they do the right things. And so I think it's going to really help us here in a few weeks when we have graduation in whatever form that looks like.
Well, that's the next question. What will graduation look like? In the governor's press conference just now, well, before that, he said that no mass groups in Ohio, meaning that you couldn't have large groups of people together in our state because of the stay-at-home order. It appeared to me, based on the answer to one of the journalists, that we can now have graduations if you, as the superintendent, can find a way to keep everybody 6 feet apart. What does graduation look like for you? Will you do it virtually, or will you figure out a way to put all of those people in the room and perhaps risk somebody getting sick?
Well, so the answer is no, I'm not going to risk getting somebody sick. I have been on the record from the beginning that when we can be in a room, I am going to shake every single hand of every single student that comes across that stage. But right now, we're not allowed to shake hands, and I'm not going to put our community at risk. Having said that, my kids have been really clear that the one thing they don't want is a digital graduation. And so we're exploring things like Reverend Macon has been doing parking lot services where people pull up in their car and they stay in their car and they honk their horns and they flash their lights. And so could we replicate that as a graduation ceremony where kids are in their cap and gown in their car so that they are contained and safe, not congregating? We're looking at, could we broadcast? We have a great partnership with WUAB running instructional. So could we broadcast our graduations and use digital content to put it on TV? We're still sorting that out. We'll make some announcements soon. I have students and parents helping make those decisions, but it will not be a live stand 6 feet apart and risk the control. That's too risky in this time. Nor will it be simply a Zoom conference. Our kids want more, and I'm going to give them what I can. And I'm still committed long-term to when we can return. I don't care if that's a year, 2 years, we'll bring them back, and this class is having their graduation. And then the other thing I'll tease is later this week, we'll be announcing a really cool partnership for CMSD prom, because that's the other thing I keep hearing about. And of course, it's not going to be live. It cannot be. But we've got some great partners that really want our kids to celebrate. And so I'll be announcing that soon.
Well, that's good. So you won't have a virtual graduation. You want to, at some point, regardless of whether June or July has passed, have an actual graduation. You just don't know when that's going to be. But they should expect something that's celebratory that they can actually remember for the rest of their lives.
Well, there will be graduation ceremonies sometime in late May, even under these circumstances. It won't simply be a Zoom. It won't be that kind of remote. It will be some kind of distancing, whether it be, like I said, broadcast on TV, whether it be parking lots, like modeling after what our churches are doing safely. It won't be, we're going to show up at municipal stadium and, municipal auditorium and walk the stage. That one will come later. But I'm not going to make them wait forever. We got to celebrate now in the way we can, but we also have to say out loud, that's not enough. We know it. And when we can come back together, we're going to do it right.
Excellent. That takes me right into my next question. Do you believe we need to have more testing for COVID-19 prior to us returning to school? K through 12, college, what are your thoughts on that?
I want to be careful to say I am not a medical expert. So, I only play one on TV, right? Certainly the more testing we have, the more easily we can open up and restore to a more normal school experience. Without that testing, I think I have a responsibility to prepare for scenarios such as maybe running A day and B day, where only half the class is ever in the room at the same time. So you have 12 students instead of 25. Or maybe we stagger schedules so only certain kids are in schools at certain times of the day. Are there some kids that are doing well in remote learning and they come to school less frequently so that we have less kids congregating? How do I transport kids where we used to put 50 kids on a bus? So with more testing, I think those questions become less urgent to figure out because we have a better line of sight about who we have to care for. With less testing, I think we should expect school leaders like me to put very much more stringent safety protocols in place. So that's the balance I'll use as Ohio figures out our testing.
Mhm. Before I move ahead, I would like to say that I'd love to work with you on the issue of the internet being a utility. I am the ranking member on the Public Utilities Committee and I serve on the Power Siting Board. So I would love to work with you and other individuals who are open to helping me convince the rest of my colleagues that this is something that's necessary. We know they have that same problem in rural Ohio. So hopefully we can get a group of people together who think the same way to convince my other colleagues to do so. Now,
I'll be there right with you.
thank you so much. Now listen, some teachers would like to know whether or not you've given any thought to school starting early since they've been out of school so early. So maybe July instead of August starting school. And for those teachers who may have had COVID-19 and are kind of weary about actually returning into the building, have you given any thought to how you would handle those two issues?
Yeah, so let me start with the second issue first. I think we clearly understand that there are going to be educators and students both who are vulnerable for COVID-19 and won't be able to return with all of their peers. We've been studying what work at home strategies work and whether those educators or students might be able to continue a more remote learning even while others come back to work. So absolutely thinking about who can and should come back and who maybe can't or shouldn't right away. And my team and I are working through, what might that look like? So it may be that those teachers are the ones that continue to help us develop content for WUAB because they can't come live to a classroom, as an example. As to starting in July, based on what I've seen from Governor DeWine, who I think is taking very careful and measured steps, I think it's unlikely that we'll probably be back into full live instruction in July. We do plan to continue to implement our learning packages over the summer to keep kids and families engaged. And then we have talked about maybe starting with fall launches where we have boot camps to say like catch up on your reading or credit recovery for high school or transition from 8th to 9th grade. But that may be, put against the beginning of next school year. But all of that depends on the answers to the question we just talked about do we have sufficient testing? What are the rules about coming together? So I think they're the right questions, but it's a little early to know what the answers might be.
Okay. Now, when we passed House Bill 525, the Cleveland plan, we had a graduation rate of around 50%.
Mm-hmm.
You've taken that graduation rate to what, a little over 80%, almost 90%?
We're at 78.4% for the last class. We'll be over 80% for the class that graduated last May. And the national average, just for perspective, is 84%. So we've closed the gap from 52% when I took over to only 4% gap, 80% in the class that we'll announce here in September.
That is excellent. I want to again commend you on that. The other thing I want to bring up for all of those people who are in Cleveland and who are students of the Cleveland Public School System, we have something called the Say Yes program. And I wish I would have graduated during the Say Yes time, because otherwise I would not have all these hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loans. So can you please explain what the Say Yes program is and who qualifies?
Sure. So it's a two-part program, but before I describe the pieces, really what's important to know is it's how do we provide the capital and social capital that middle and upper middle income families already enjoy for my kids in my community. So what do I mean by that? Well, one part of the program is a last dollar tuition scholarship to every student who lives in the district attends high school with us from 9th through 12th grade and graduates. They can go to any 2-year or 4-year public college in Ohio or vocational schools in Ohio, plus 120 colleges across the country, tuition free. We'll take care of all of the costs for that. So that tuition, that's right. That's the capital. But we also match every one of those students with a mentor. I'm a mentor to 2 students, so that over the course of the time that the student's in college, somebody's checking in on them, somebody's blocking and covering for them. And then as the student starts to get ready to move into the work field, there's somebody advocating for them. So thinking about, when I was graduating as a young teacher, having a mentor who says, oh, I know Eric Gordon and I can connect him with the superintendent of Cleveland schools and see if we can't give him a leg up in the job, right? That's social capital that middle and upper middle income families often have access to that my kids and community do not. So that's the capital and social capital on the scholarship side. But that scholarship only matters if kids have a pathway to that scholarship where they can thrive. So the other and probably more important part for me is the services and supports in our Say Yes core service schools. We had 16 this year. We're adding 26 more next year, and we'll have the full district covered within 4 years. This provides a family support specialist in every school who helps students and families with needs. Are you hungry? Do you need eyeglasses? Do you need a tutoring program? Do you need legal support? Do you need health care or mental health care? Let's clear all those hurdles that get in the way. Again, the capital that most families already enjoy. And then the social capital is who's that advocate, in this case, the family support specialist, that can connect you to that lawyer when you need help. And I use the law one as an example because I have a young man that I personally mentor. He got on the health line in Cleveland. At the time, it was $2.25. He didn't pay his fare. Now he should have. I'm not saying that's right. But in a upper middle income family, a child who did that, they would have the capital and social capital to pay restitution, maybe do some community service, that'd be it. Well, my kid doesn't have that support or resource and has already had some trouble in his past. So long story short, he ended up with a $5,000 warrant for his arrest for a $2.25 bus ticket. And had I not found out, and I found out pretty much by accident, and I called in a friend and said, I need help, social capital, he'd have sat 60 in jail over a $2.25 bus ticket. That would never happen in a middle income community. And so the services and supports, both around capital and social capital, are intended to make sure our kids over time are more and more thriving so that when they get that scholarship, they're fully ready to take it.
Well, I am so happy that you were able to intervene in that. I actually am a mentor for college now myself. I have
Yep.
one student who's attending Ohio State University, and hopefully I'm a good mentor to her. I know it's difficult when you're starting college and you're also trying to keep up with a mentor or a mentee, but hopefully those things do help out in the big scheme of things. And, at another time, I would love to talk to you about the Cleveland Scholarship Program and I think $10 million I was trying to get you guys back for each of the years, but we are still working on getting that money back that goes unused every year. And then I want to talk to you about the report card, because I believe that a lot of people don't understand the report card and how Cleveland is compared to every other school district across the state, even those the wealthiest school district in the state. So that's another time. I do want to thank you again for taking time out of your busy schedule to come and talk to me and talk to others. I want to thank everybody who is participating on this call. I also want to take the time to thank those individuals, whether I can name them or not, that are reaching out to help you do the things that you need to do. Giving another shout out to the teachers in the Cleveland Teachers Union. I want to give a shout out to every union member that's working in your buildings every day, making sure our children are safe. I want to shout out AT&T, Spectrum, and everybody else who is helping to make this unusual time a success for everybody. And if anybody, as I always say, has a question about graduation, has a question about anything, whether it relates to job, unemployment, my office is always available. I can be reached at williams@ohiosenate.gov, and I can be reached at 614-466-4857. CEO Eric Gordon, you have been a pleasure. Thank you again for being here. And I'm sorry we didn't get a chance to take any questions today, but I think you provided us with a lot of great information. And I look forward to seeing you soon. I was actually supposed to do the graduation commencement speech at John Hay, but unfortunately, we won't be doing that right now. But
Well, stay tuned. We'll see.
Thank you so much and have a wonderful day. Thanks, everybody. And don't forget to turn in your ballots.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Senator, for your strong leadership and support. Take care.
Bye-bye.